What is up, everyone? We're back with another episode of Courtside Creatives. If you're like me, you've been waiting for the NBA season to kick back up. We've already passed Summer League. We're in that lull where nothing's really going on. You don't have preseason picking back up until early October. So we're recording this in early August, and we're just doing our way too early predictions of the NBA standings. And this is an annual ritual that I do. It's actually entertaining to do because every time I look back, I realize how wrong I am with some of these predictions. But it's a fun exercise because you get to see, where teams are projected to go and where teams actually end up, like, the Indiana Pacers last year, outperforming any predictions that people had of them and how deep they went. But this is really focused on the regular season and seeing where teams should come out in terms of the standings. So we're going to break it down by each conference, right? We'll break it down actually by the bottom five, the middle five, and the top five of each conference. So let's jump right into it. We'll start with the Western Conference. At the bottom five, you have, in my prediction, it's going to be the Utah Jazz at number 15. This team definitely has a lot to work on. There is no clear alpha on that team. They have Lauri Markkanen in there, in my opinion, just collecting dust, and a cast of, a motley crew of people really on that squad. So there's a lot of young guys that are going to be fighting to make a name for themselves. So I don't know what the identity of that team is. I don't think they know either. So it seems like another tanky year for that team. And for that reason, I think that the Utah Jazz will be dead last in the Western Conference. Now, what we're going to do too is look at the over-under on the projected win total for these teams. So we base this off Hard Rock Bets odds, for what they predict the win total is going to be. And in this case, the prediction was that the Utah Jazz would have 18.5 wins. And last season they had 17 wins, so they fall right in that range. I'm going to have to bet that it would be under. I think they will probably win 16 or 17 games again. I don't think that they win more than 18 games this upcoming season because there's too many variables that need to go their way. So my prediction is Utah Jazz dead last and under 18.5 wins. Coming in at number 14, I think it's the Sacramento Kings. I think that last season they might have won 40 games, but I think they take a deeper fall this year and they come out number 14th in the West. The West is going to be a really tough conference, and they don't really have guys on that roster that outside of putting up stats, by Levine, they don't know what they're going to do with Malik Monk. There's just too many question marks on that team right now, and the way it's constructed, I don't think that team is going to be anything outside of the bottom five, but I'm actually predicting they're going to be the second worst team in the West. So yeah, the projected wins was 37.5. I think that they win way less than 37 games. So I'm going to have to go under on that. So I think that the Kings are going to have a rough season ahead. So sorry for Kings fans. They're not going to be lighting the beam that much in this upcoming season. And now coming in at number 13, I'm going to say it's the New Orleans Pelicans. I really don't know what's going to happen with Zion Williamson. He's obviously shown that he struggles to play an entire season and have extended periods of performing for that team. So that alone makes it very difficult for that team to perform at its highest potential. They do have Herb Jones and Trey Murphy and a few other guys that are promising, especially with the rookie class coming in. But you can't bank on the rookie class leading to higher performance than they had last season. They won 21 games last season. This year, they're predicted to win 31.5. I don't think that they get to that marker. I think that they get under 31 wins this year, and they come in at number 13 in the West. Now, for number 12, I think this is a team that's on its way up, that they're doing things in a positive direction, and I think it's the Portland Trail Blazers. I would say the Trail Blazers would come in at number 12. They're predicted to win 33.5 games, and I think that they could win around 34 or 35 games. So I would bet the over in that sense for that team. I think Chauncey Billups is starting to turn the corner as a head coach. I think that they made some moves and have some players on that roster that can actually, produce wins for them. Denny Advija, you have Scoot Henderson that seems to be starting to perform a little bit better. Yang Hansen now being drafted, I think that's going to add some depth along with Klingen at the center. So I like their depth at the center position. And I think that they have enough on that roster. And we'll see if Drew Holiday stays on that roster and they, actually use him. And now actually Dame going back, and even though he won't play, he'll be, a voice in that locker room and someone that can provide some of that veteran, perspective to those players. I think that's going to be helpful to them. So I think that things are trending in the right direction, and I expect that the Trailblazers will be in a position to take a step up this season and rank number 12 outside of the playoffs. But hey, they got to take baby steps. And then at number 11, I'm going to predict that the Phoenix Suns come in and probably, we'll have maybe over 30.5 wins. That's what the line is at right now. So 30.5 is what the prediction is. I think that they could win a little bit more than that, but I think it's still to put them outside of the play-in. There's just really, I don't know outside of Devin Booker who's going to take that step up on that roster. Bradley Beal's now out. They added a few other guys that, very deep at the guard position, but they lack a lot of depth when it comes to the center and the, the front court. So we'll see how they use that their current roster construction to compete in the West. But I do think that the Suns will struggle, but they'll probably beat that prediction of 30.5 wins. I think I would put them over on that, maybe winning 31, 32 wins if things go well in that way. That's pretty much my rundown for the bottom 5 of the West. And now we'll look at the middle 5. The middle 5 is, right on the cusp of the play-in tournament. And coming in at number 10, I will say that the Memphis Grizzlies would come in at that position. Last season, they won 48 games. I do not think that this season they win 48 games. They lost Desmond Bane, which is a big loss for them. And they've, shuffled a few positions on that roster. They still have John Morant. They still have Jaren Jackson Jr. and a few other guys that fill in that roster. But I just don't think they have enough to even match what they had last year. The prediction right now is that they'll have 40.5 wins. I'm going to predict that they get under that. I think they probably win like 38, 39 games this season in a very difficult Western Conference. So that puts them right at the 10 spot in the play-in tournament. And I don't know if they get out of it. I think that they stay outside once it's all said and done. And then coming in at number 9, I think this is a team that's punching up. Obviously, they'll be without Kyrie Irving, but the Dallas Mavericks look like a team that can at least be in that play-in spot. And with Anthony Davis, with obviously Cooper Flagg coming in, a few other guys, Derek Lively Jr., I think those are some solid guys they have on that roster. I believe they still have PJ Washington in there, so they could still find a way to be somewhat competitive and make their way into the play-in tournament. But coming off losing Luka Doncic last year and reshuffling this team and still getting lucky enough to get Cooper Flagg, I think that this team will be somewhat competitive and an exciting team to watch to see how they leverage the talent on that roster. So I'm gonna bet that at the current rating of 38.5 games, that they probably win 39 or 40 games this season. So I would bet the over on this team. They won 39 games last season, and that was with a lot of shuffling and with AD going out. And, I think that they have enough to squeak out maybe a couple more wins than they did last season. And so I think that that's really where the Mavericks land in the middle 5. And now the team that I think is starting to really trend in an upward direction and would find themselves at the 8th spot is the San Antonio Spurs. You got a full season now with De'Aaron Fox. You obviously have Wemby. You have Stephon Castle, the reigning Rookie of the Year. I really like the rookies that they drafted in Carter Bryant and Harper. So I think that this team has a lot of things working in their favor. I think that they're going to start making some strides in terms of working their way up the standings and starting to compete and making the playoffs this season, at least in the play-in range. So I'm excited to see what the San Antonio Spurs do with their talent. A lot of young guys, a lot of guys that if they pan out to be as talented and fruitful as what they're projected to be, that team is going to be a problem in the next 2 or 3 seasons to really watch where they stack up against in the West. So right now they have 43.5 wins is the projection. I think they probably come in just under that. They win 43, maybe 42, and they sneak in to that 8th spot. So last year they had 34. So even that's a big leap for them to win a whole 10 more games. So I'm saying they win maybe 8 more games than they did last season. I think that they're talented enough and have enough quality of players and can find a system that works to find themselves in that 8th spot. And then coming in at number 7, you have the Los Angeles Clippers. I know a lot of other projections have them higher. In fact, they think that this team is going to win 47.5 games. And I'm going to bet that they do under that. They won 50 last year. And even though they brought in some talent to that team, they are now by far the oldest average age roster in the NBA. So I don't know how that works. We're talking about the regular season, and you got to have these guys last throughout an entire year to perform at the levels that they need to be in order to, get enough wins to work their way up a Western Conference. So I don't know. I think that even though a lot of teams have them as high as, a lot of other pundits have them as high as 4, I think that this team actually takes a dip and they go into like the 7 range. So I would bet that they win under 47.5 games this season and they land at the 7th spot. I just, as much talent as they have, I don't know how that age and how the longevity of some of those players is going to pan out. I mean, we still need to see Kawhi Leonard play an entire season. James Harden obviously can produce a lot of stats, but I don't know how it all works together, really. I think that they're going to have a difficult time putting it together. And then coming in at number 6 and the last of the middle 5, I will say that the Golden State Warriors come in at the 6th spot. They also are predicted to win 47.5 games. And I'm going to bet that they win just under that as well. They won 48 last season, and that's it. They had a nice uptick when Jimmy Butler joined that roster. They had a lot of things, they kind of snowballed in that little streak that they had post Jimmy. And I just don't know in an entire season how that team's going to stack up with the lack of depth that they have. They obviously have Steph, Draymond, and Jimmy, but when you look down the rest of that roster, it's difficult to see outside of Podziemski and a few other guys. I mean, what's going to happen with Jonathan Kuminga, who's basically on the cusp of, is he going to be on this roster? Is he going to get traded? So you don't know. It seems like he might be on the roster come, the start of the season. And so I just think that this team coming in at number 6 is right on par with what you would expect. They were a little bit higher last season, but I think that they come in just under 47.5 games. So I would bet the under on that in terms of total wins. And so, it's going to be interesting. You really can't count them out completely just because you have the star power of Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler not being the star player now, coming in as more of a Robin role. So that's where I think the Golden State Warriors stack up in the West. And that rounds out the middle 5 for the Western Conference. And now coming in at the top 5 of the West, we start with number 5, and I will say that the Los Angeles Lakers would come in right at that 5th spot. Similar to the Warriors, but in my opinion with a little bit more talent at the top 2. You have obviously LeBron James and Luka Doncic there as your stars leading the way. You have Austin Reeves right there as being that number 3, and a cast of other role players that can come in and fill some of the voids that they have. They brought in Marcus Smart. I don't know how much gas he has left in the tank, but maybe in a limited role he could provide some of that veteran poise off the bench. They still have Rui Hachimura, and they have a few other guys there that can really fill out that roster and compete during the regular season. I think they have enough to win. Right now the prediction is 47.5 wins. They won 50 last year. I think they could win maybe 48, 49, maybe around 50 again. So I think that I would bet the over on their win total. I think that they get over 47.5 and they're able to firmly position themselves in that 5th spot there's an argument that they could even make it up to the fourth. But I think that that's where they come in and they have enough to be in the top tier of the West. But we'll see. I don't know if they have enough depth to actually make a deep run when we're talking about the playoffs. Then coming in at number 4, I would say that the Minnesota Timberwolves would be the 4th spot. I think that last year they won 49 wins. And, Anthony Edwards is still that dude. I think that he's going to will his way and will that team into being competitive in the West. I think that they still have a good enough of a roster, even though they lost Nickeil Alexander-Walker and they lost a little bit of depth there, that they still have enough guys that can, really contend, and they have a lot of height on that roster that allows them to have a distinct advantage compared to a lot of other teams. So I think that, the Timberwolves, they're right now looking at 50.5 wins is the line. I would bet just under that. I think that they win 50 wins. They won 49 last season, so I think that it's right on that cusp. So this is one of those lines that straddles really, it feels like it's on the mark. I think that they win just 49 or 50. I don't think that they win 51. And then coming in at number 3, I think the Denver Nuggets are primed to break into the top 3 again this season. They added enough depth. I think that making the move to bring in Johnson onto the team and getting rid of Michael Porter Jr. Cam Johnson's just an upgrade to that roster over Michael Porter Jr. And, rounding it out by bringing back Bruce Brown, adding in Tim Hardaway Jr., Valanciunas. They got guys there that now start adding that depth. And they were one of the teams that actually gave the Oklahoma City Thunder a lot of issues. So I think that this might be enough to put them again in that spot where if they match up against the Thunder, that they could go to another 7-game series, or they could put them over the top and actually beat them this time around. One of the few teams that can actually that you can actually say that about. And obviously you still have Jokic there, and as long as Jamal Murray is healthy and competing when it comes to the playoffs, like, that's a team that's going to be a problem. But focused on the regular season, I think they have enough to be number 3 in the West. And their line is at 53.5 wins. I think they come in just under. I think they win 51, 52 wins. And that's enough for them to take that 3rd spot in the West. So excited to see what the Nuggets do. Now they'll have a full season with their new coach after getting rid of Mike Malone late in the year. So I think that the Nuggets come in at number 3. And then at number 2, it's the Houston Rockets. Obviously, they adding Kevin Durant without really giving up too much depth, and really like some of those young players that are on their way up, and really like they have a good mix of players now, along with Ime Udoka at the helm coaching that team. I think that if they live up to the quality of talent on that roster, that they should be the number 2 team in the West, winning enough games to position themselves there. The line for them is 54.5. I think that they could win a little. They probably get 55, 56 wins. Last year they won 52. So this is assuming that they win 3-4 more games on top of that. I think that's completely doable with the current roster that they have. And I'm excited to see that team because I think that they're in a great position. I really like Şengün. I really like Thompson. I really like the players that they have on that roster to really round it out. And obviously KD coming in and being that source of veteran poise, scoring, and just like when you need a bucket, you know that you have options on that roster. So it's going to be really an interesting season for the Rockets because of that. And obviously at number 1, I don't think there's any surprise here that OKC, the Thunder, would be the number 1 team again. And this year, actually, they're projected to win significantly less than they did the previous year. Last year, they won 68 games. This year, the line is at 62.5. I think that they win over that. I think that they could win 63, 64 games, maybe even 65, because of how deep that roster is. And just, I don't see any signs of weakness on that roster right now. They have enough, and they have guys on the way up that can really, fill any gap they might have, even if they have injuries. So they got even guys like AJ Mitchell and Topic, who didn't even play last year, who are now going to probably get some more playing time. And so like their depth at just the guard position is incredible. And obviously you've seen what they have at the other positions. So I think obviously the Thunder are going to come in at number 1 for the West, winning over 62.5 games. And so I think that's the rundown. So let's go top to bottom. You have Thunder at number 1, Rockets number 2, Nuggets at 3rd, the Timberwolves at 4, with the Lakers coming in at 5. That's a top 5 for the West. And then in the middle pack, you have the Golden State Warriors at 6, the Clippers at 7, the San Antonio Spurs at 8, the Mavericks at 9, and the Grizzlies at number 10, rounding out all the way to the cusp of the play-in tournament. And then when you look at the bottom, again, bottom of the West, you have the Phoenix Suns coming in at number 11, the Portland Trail Blazers at 12, and the Pelicans at number 13, with the last 2 being the Sacramento Kings and the Utah Jazz at dead last. And that's my wrap up for the way too early predictions for the Western Conference. And stay tuned for the Eastern Conference rundown.